Over the weekend was published a story that won't surprise any of you, I guess, particularly those of you who have a particular view or jaundiced or otherwise, probably it's not just a word for realism, jaundice, on big spending on the left and the inability to be able to keep an appetite under control. Well, it appears not just to be happening at a national level as well, but in a Green left-dominated council, which is in the Green left capital of New Zealand. Probably when the election night results come in, it'll remain the only Green red lefty place in New Zealand, and that is Wellington, where they have a apparently massive, significant financial crisis, according to the description of some councillors, but they are not allowed to discuss it in public. Joining us to talk about that and the secrecy that attends council in general, just recently elected Councillor Tony Randle from the Wellington City Council, speaking in an individual capacity. He speaks with us now. Hello, Tony. Welcome to the show. Thanks very much, mate, for joining us.
Thank you, and good morning to you, Michael, and your listeners.
I guess the first thing I wanted to say, you are speaking in an independent or an individual capacity. You're not speaking on behalf of the Wellington City Council, because they just love bringing codes of conduct for people that might just speak out of turn around New Zealand and local government, don't they?
Absolutely. No, this is not the official message from the Wellington City Council, but I am speaking as an elected Wellington City Councillor.
Right. So
I do have some information beyond the public, and only some of that can be shared, unfortunately.
Now, just explain that to me. What we know, what has been reported, is that the Wellington City Council is in some financial strife. Okay, so that's been reported. One of your councillors has described it as a financial crisis, and other media have reported that Tory Whānau's election promises as mayor all appear to be on the chopping block, or most of them anyhow, as a result of that financial crisis. How much of that can you share with us, Tony?
What I can say is that, so we're due to spend like $1.4 billion this year on capital programs.
Wow.
Over the next, so I'm not sure if that's this year or the next 10 years, but certainly we have it'll be the next 10 years. But we need to trim that by, if not tens of millions, at least by, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, we really have taken on a whole list of projects, an enormous list of projects that we simply can't fund.
And you can't fund it, why? Because your ratepayers, all your ratepayers are sitting there, they're all paid well, Tony. So why can't you fund it?
It's due to a combination of factors. It's a similar sort of factors that I'm sure lots of your readers are seeing. Rising costs, high interest rates. Of course, a lot of these capital projects are funded from borrowings, and interest rates are much higher than they were when these projects were put in the program, by the previous council mostly. And it's simply, it's too much trying to get through the door. We can't widen the door because that means increased rates, and we've already increased rates about 13% last year. And of course, the economy is not getting better.
Okay, you see, one of the things that's been reported in the media is that the region could run out of water this summer, triggering severe restrictions as a result of the lack of capital expenditure on something as basic as providing water to your constituents. Is that true?
Yes. It's been, they had a big water summit last week, and the outcome of that is that we need to spend even more on water. Now, Wellington's notorious for leaks of both the white and the brown kind. Last week we had a major blowout, a white blowout, thank goodness, in the CBD, and lost water there. It's reported that we lose 40% of our fresh water before it gets to the tap, and we're spending an enormous amount, but this is apparently not enough, and we've got tens of millions more that we need to spend to keep the water infrastructure together, and that sort of prioritised means that something else has got to give, because there is no more money.
Yeah, well, that sounds like South Africa. I mean, that's the sort of thing that happens in a well, it's not a banana republic, but in a sort of broken down, dysfunctional state like South Africa. You mean the capital city of our country, of New Zealand, supposedly in the first world, could potentially run out of water this summer because your infrastructure is in such disrepair and dysfunction, Tony.
Yeah, look, you know, I'm an independent councillor. We're a council that's been governed by a red-green coalition for the last decade or so, and they've been hooked on opium, you know, other people's money. They haven't seen a project that they really don't like. So we've got things like, and we're an earthquake city. So we've got another 46 million committed into the, you know, we approved into the town hall, which doesn't sound too bad, but that's on top of already spending 160 million. So now we're over 200 million for the town hall. We've got 76 million for the library.
Wow.
We've got a brand new, as I'd like to tell people, we've got a brand new convention centre over $140 million. Okay, but it's been funded, it seems, out of depreciation funding that's supposed to have gone to the water.
Oh my God.
And then, you know, and then we've got Let's Get Wellington Moving. It's so famous, you know, the Golden Mile and Thorndike Hut Road, 112 million. And, you know, mass transit, light rail, you know, it's not even on the table yet. Thank goodness it seems that both the government and both Labour and National have committed to doing the second Mount Vic tunnel, because we certainly couldn't fund it. So, you know, we've got some big basics, which is like water, and we're also a big housing provider, and, you know, there's a lot of work to be done in the housing to fix up the housing. So, yeah, we've just sort of taken on a lot. And we haven't actually stopped anything.
So, Tony, I mean, the obvious thing from somebody looking outside in is what comes first. You either pare everything back. There was a 12.3% rate rise, I think, for your ratepayers this year, which is what, almost double the rate of inflation. You either pare everything back, or alternatively, I mean, you go to the government, but gee, guess what? The government's cutting back expenditure at the moment, and certainly the next one will have to. What's the options? Just stick to the knitting.
Well, I mean, I think that, people know in the end, you know, they're going to look in the checkbook, and the overdraft will be so big that even the red greens will have to say, oops, we have to stop something. But I don't think the message has quite got through, which is why I think Councillor Calvert had to raise it now, because, you know, this came up in discussing our next plan for zero waste, 100% recycling. This is a new project to spend, it will cost tens of millions of dollars to put in place, and cost over $20 million a year extra so that we can recycle our organic waste. And like, you know, we aren't focusing on the basics. Something's got to give. I voted for it to go to consultation because the public needs to have a say, but I did think that it was not going to go anywhere because there's, you know, no money in the kitty. And that's the crisis. You know, the crisis really is that we still haven't got a council that recognises the serious nature of what we're facing.